There's a word of caution before we get into the subject matter. And the word of caution is, you may lose a few points on your IQ level if you stick around. So my strong recommendation is that right now you leave the channel and don't watch the show today. Okay. What are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about this thing called simulation theory. They call it a hypothesis. It's not a hypothesis. It's a theory. It's an explanation. According to this theory, this explanation, this physical interpretation, we were made. What you are is a computer simulation run by an advanced civilization. I suppose they look something like this. Okay, let me give you something to look at. I guess that's you there. One of the questions you should ask yourself as we go through the lecture today is, where does this happen? I mean, is this out there in space or is this in a computer? Another one is, when did this start? Are we talking about it started with you, with me, with this generation? Or are we talking about, my great-granddaddy, Adam? Is that when it started? They created Adam and then the whole thing started after that? Just kept rolling? Because otherwise they have a contradiction. On the one hand, they defend evolution, and on the other one, they said, look, we were made by a computer, by an advanced civilization in a computer program of some kind. So, again, we have a problem there. We have to decide, who was it that they made? Did they make Adam or did they make you, right? And there are questions of that nature. There's another issue of, there's a confluence of determinism and free will. People have always fought back and forth. Do we have determinism in the universe? Is everything just deterministic, or is there free will? And so you ask any human, more or less, people will say, yeah, I have free will. I can do anything I want. But see, these people are suggesting or insinuating, with their theory, that the extraterrestrials that made us, the aliens, they already made you think that you have free will. And part of it that's behind this theory that you have to keep in mind at all times is this nonsense about the black universe. God sees the whole universe, past, present, and future, in a single go. And so the question is, once again, if the future already exists, do you have free will? Or are you just a cartoon character in a movie? It's like Bugs Bunny. Can he do something different than what the script writer and the person who draws the cartoon, can he do something different than what they specified for him? Be scary, quite a bit scary. And that's more or less the situation here. So where did all this nonsense start about, because what else can you call it? It is nonsense. It's called this simulation. It started with this fellow. He proposed it in 2001, and he really published it in 2003. And the question is, what peer reviewers approved this? One issue, and then why are we still talking about this today? There are other papers being written about this stuff, so it hasn't stopped. Okay, so here it is. It's this fellow. His name is Nick Bostrom. And he says, this paper argues, this is his groundbreaking paper, right? This paper argues that at least one of the following propositions is true. The first one is, the human species is very likely to go extinct before reaching a post-human stage. And the answer is, he's close, but not quite. I mean, it's guaranteed to go extinct before the post-human stage. Okay, but I guess he didn't figure that out. He said it's very likely. Right? Okay, and so what's part of the problem with this? Well, first we need to know what this post-human thingy is. What is that? Post-humanism. What is that? What is he talking about? And here it is. Post-humanism, there are several issues involved with that. I put the main ones, the ones that I think concern at least this lecture. One is transhumanism. And it says develop technologies that enable immortality. That's what these people have in mind, live forever, right? The dream that we've had since day one, since we, gained consciousness. And that greatly enhance human intellectual, physical, and psychological capacities in order to achieve what? A post-human future. So post-human means that you're no longer going to be human. You're going to be something else, I guess. Then there are these other issues, the AI takeover, artificial intelligence, right? Humans will be replaced by artificial intelligence. Technological singularity, this is what they hope to achieve, after which technology will advance exponentially, right? It says humans should get ready to accept their eventual demise and be replaced by bots, right? And together with that, you have this cosmism. We should develop artificial intelligence, even if it may entail the end of humanity, for it would be a cosmic tragedy if humanity freezes evolution at the puny human level. Also known as voluntary human extinction. In other words, we know we're going to become extinct. Why? Because it's the bots who are going to replace us. And the question is, do we still have humans on Earth? Or have the bots taken over and we run the Earth first and then the whole universe with bots? Is that the future of intelligence, of evolution? We evolve into, not physically, but we evolve culturally and through technology into bots. That's what these people are suggesting. But that's the negative side. Humans become extinct. There's a positive side. There's these people who are optimists, and one of them is this fellow, another bean brain. His name is Ray Kurzweil, and he says the following. He says, technological progress follows a pattern of exponential growth, following what he calls the law of accelerating returns. In other words, he thinks that technologies will just blow the field wide open, that right now we're going at a snail's pace, but once we reach that singularity, when the bots take over, hey man, the sky's the limit, right? And it's going to be exponential, right? The development of technology. Whenever technology approaches a barrier, new technologies will surmount it. This is what he's got in the back of his mind. This is what he thinks he just extrapolates the past to the future indiscriminately without really, putting any mental capacity, any mental resources to the problem. He just extrapolates the numbers, what he's seen in the past. And he said paradigm shifts will become increasingly common, leading to a technological change so rapid and profound it represents a rupture in the fabric of human history. Okay, this is what he's predicting. Got little birdies around his head. Should have put one of those astrologer cones on his head. They predict all this stuff, right? Palm readers. We used to call them astrologers. Now they're called futurists or futurologists or whatever they call themselves. The technological singularity will occur by approximately 2045. So get ready, okay? And he thinks it's going to be a gradual ascent. Others think it's going to be much faster. And progress in science and technology will lead to an abundance of what? Virtually free resources, okay? Enabling every citizen to live without the need to work. So he is an optimist, no doubt about it. He says that humans will continue living, but what's the situation? Situation is that, these people say the bots are going to be our servants. They're going to serve us forever and ever, and we're just going to do nothing. All the work's going to be done by them. Talk about slavery. I mean, we're not talking about building a pyramid here. We're talking about, everything in your house being done by robots, and you're going to be, a vegetable maybe? And not even an incentive to learn or to better yourself because you can get all that information at the tip of your fingers, so. Well, what this fellow's missing is the technological curve, which more or less looks like this, okay? You can see all technology always reaches a plateau. It's asymptotic in growth, and then it goes down. You can make improvements on existing ideas that are out there, existing inventions, and improve them. You can make it red instead of blue, right? So you have a new invention because it's a red refrigerator instead of a blue one. Any change to an existing gadget is already patentable, I guess, and it's a new invention according to the patent office. Okay. But yeah, the issue is that not only do each individual technology, does an individual technology reach a plateau and then starts falling down, but that's not only in technologically true, but it's also economically true. You have this plateau and then starts coming down. But the issue is whether whether technology will continue advancing. Forget about exponentially. I mean, even arithmetically, is this true? Will technology go on forever? And what these people don't realize is the first thing is that we're through with technology. There is no more technology. We're done with technology. We've been done with technology some years back. We've got everything we need as far as technology is concerned. The ultimate prize was getting this, this phone, a portable phone that has everything in it, computer. You can talk to your mother on the other side of the planet. You can look up things. It's the all-in-one computer, typewriter, telephone, television, the whole thing, all in one. And that was the ultimate goal. And it's not really an invention. It's putting together several inventions, the TV, the radio, the phone, etc. All they did was put it all in one. They say, well, here's an invention. Well, it's not really an invention. It's putting all these ideas together and creating the device we always craved, which is the all-in-one portable whatever you want to call it, smartphone. Okay. That's it. That was the last, you can say, invention of any worth that we really wanted. What else do we need? What else do we want? And it's going to take you a while to figure something that you really, really want. And I don't want you to think of one thing. I want you to think of 1,000 things that you want. And you certainly won't come up with them, okay? The age of manufacturing stopped in the 20th century, pretty much. And that's when technology was expanding. We were inventing things because everybody needed. We needed washing machines. We needed airplanes. We needed furniture. We needed so many things. And so a lot of people put their heads together and they started building all these companies that built all these gadgets. Let's call them gadgets. And they invented things in the process and made old things better, etc. But we're done with that process. The age of manufacturing is dead now. Only 15% is manufacturing, and that's what technology was supposedly for. Now the technology is geared to abstractions, programming. What do we program today? Games? Oh man, that's going to drive technology, through the roof. Games. What do we do? Just create more games? I mean, what else is there? Within technology. Certainly not anything tangible. It's going to have to be abstract, like programming, internet, that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, the age of technological, meaning when I say technology, I mean really manufacturing solid things, right? That's over. And so to believe that there's going to be a point known as a singularity from which new inventions, physical inventions, gadgets expand exponentially, what are they going to invent? Can you even dream or even imagine the billions of objects that we need that we never had? I mean, what are these people talking about? And this is a big part of the problem, the fact that they're extrapolating the past without considering the fact that, technology is over, and so is manufacturing. Now we're in the service area, region, age, and it's all abstractions, all internet. And so if there's any technological advancement, it's going to be all abstraction, nothing tangible. And so these people are talking about, things in medicine, that we're going to invent so many things that It's going to allow us to live forever. That's where they see the future, in just health, and especially, anything that gives us eternity. These people are dreaming. These people don't even know what they're talking about anymore. That's the reality. Okay, so this is the second thing that Bostrom said, good old Nick here, and he says the following. He says, any post-human civilization extremely unlikely to run a significant number of simulations of their evolutionary history. And so one of the questions there is whether, are we talking about, where's this taking place? Here I'm going to put a little image that will contrast, which of the two they're really referring to. Are they referring to the one on the left or the one on the right? The one on the left is a video game, you could say, some program in a computer, and you're in that program somehow, right? Or are we talking about, terraforming a planet like, Mars, and saying, look, we're going to terraform the aliens, right? They terraform and they put Adam in there or whoever, right? And evolution starts taking place. I mean, which of these two scenarios are they talking about? Are they you're just a computer program? You're a cartoon like Bugs Bunny, a two-dimensional cartoon? Is that what they're saying? You're just some kind of signal in a computer system? Is that what you are? Or are we talking about them terraforming a planet? So we have to distinguish between these two scenarios. Are we saying that the aliens went to a planet, an existing planet, or maybe even created the planet and started playing around and creating life on that planet? Or are we talking just a computer program? And these people really are referring to the computer program because they don't really talk about, terraforming and real people. They're saying, look, you're like a computer program like Bugs Bunny, but suddenly, you start doing all these things, you move around, you think you have free will, but it turns out it's all deterministic because, again, the aliens already programmed everything in you, and on top of that, we have, unfortunately, the block universe that says the future already exists, and all you're doing is walking on footprints, existing footprints, and you can't avoid it. But you're saying, oh, no, I have free will, but you're being fooled. No, you don't have. It's kind of like this, more or less, here, what they're suggesting, like the Wicked Witch of the West, in The Wizard of Oz, looks at her crystal ball and sees, Dorothy and the others over there, right? I mean, these people have a surrealistic vision of the future, and they don't see anything wrong with it. They think this is normal, this is fair game. And the question is, how did this stuff end up in science? I mean, if you want to take it to Hollywood, I have no problem. Write a script, write a novel, turn it into a movie, no problem whatsoever. How did this garbage, this poppycock, this nonsense end up being treated in science? People writing papers, publishing papers, having peer reviewers approve it for publication. That's where my question is. Okay, how did this end up in science? And people say, well, it ended up in philosophy. No such monster as philosophy because no one has defined philosophy. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy famously never defined the word philosophy. So you wonder what the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is about if they never defined the word philosophy. And you go to other sites, which I've gone to, and they have all these irrational definitions. All they have is theories of what philosophy is. You had people like Wittgenstein and Russell and all these people discussed what is philosophy, and they ended up with analyzing propositions, which is what they called philosophy. If philosophy is simply a way of thinking, we have 8 billion philosophers on the planet today, and who knows how many throughout history. Everybody was a philosopher because everybody has a way of thinking. If the guy goes to the university and studies, and he says, I studied philosophy, I got a degree in philosophy. Well, what's your degree in? Love of wisdom? Is that what your degree is in? We define philosophy as one of the branches of science, opposite to physics. Physics deals with objects, and philosophy deals with concepts. Has to do with purposes and reasons, and nothing but. That's it. That's the only piece of philosophy that survives, and it falls under science. So these people are bringing all this stuff into science really because they're not really bringing it into philosophy. They're bringing it under physics. They're saying there's a physical process where you are a cartoon character in a movie or in a screen or in some computer program. And look, I'm moving around. I touch myself. Yeah, you think you are, but you have been programmed by someone out there. So that's physics. That's got nothing to do with philosophy. You're talking about physics. You're talking about physical entities, right? And the only philosophical stuff is what you're thinking about, the mind-body problem, and I'll get to that in a minute. But other than that, you're talking about physics. So yeah, this if they put it under philosophy, it's in the wrong place. This should be under physics, and it should never have made it to physics in the first place, period. Okay, and what's the third thing this fellow Bostrom says? Well, he says the last one is, we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. Okay, that's his conclusion. Why? It follows that the belief that there is a significant chance that we will one day become posthumans who run ancestor simulations is false, unless we are currently living in a simulation. My God, my poor God, what a brain this person has. I mean, what's this guy doing teaching at universities? Should be in a mental asylum. This guy has no ability to think whatsoever. And the wonder is that these people become celebrities. These people become big names, Kurzweil and Bostrom and so on. They win prizes and who knows what. So this is how he justifies it, more or less. He says, many works of science fiction, as well as some forecasts by serious technologies and futurologists. We're talking about serious people, okay, here. These are serious futurologists. They used to be called astrologers, palm readers, but now they're serious futurologists. Predict that enormous amounts of computing power will be available in the future. Okay, so these people are, again, extrapolating stuff out there, and they think that this computer power will just reach unbelievable limits, whatever that means in their minds. They see infinity and all these things, right? And because of that computer power, right, we should be able to simulate real living entities on a screen or in the universe. I don't know where, because again, these people don't specify what the platform is. Are we talking about a computer program, a computer, screen, or are we talking about a planet out there where they created this experiment, right? Which of the two is the platform? It says one thing that later generations might do with their super powerful computers is run detailed simulations of their forebears or people like their forebears. And then he says the great thing here. Suppose that these simulated people are conscious. Okay, now we're talking about Bugs Bunny gaining consciousness here. Okay, that's the context here. And he says, as they would be if the simulations were sufficiently fine-grained and if a certain quite widely accepted position in the philosophy of mind is correct. Well, I don't know about philosophy of mind. These must be retarded people in an asylum who believe that, that a cartoon gains consciousness. But if this is what a lot of these philosophers of mind think, well, they should all be institutionalized, period. These people have lost touch with reality. It says, then it could be the case that the vast majority of minds like ours do not belong to the original race, but rather to people simulated by the advanced descendants of an original race. It is then possible to argue that, if this were the case, we would be rational to think that we are likely among the simulated minds rather than among the original biological ones. Therefore, if we don't think that we are currently living in a computer simulation, we are not entitled to believe that we will have descendants who will run lots of simulations of their forebears. Okay, so this is his line of reasoning, if you can call it reasoning at all. I mean, these people need to be institutionalized. What can I say? They're not even, they lost touch with reality. How do we analyze this? Well, I have to begin by defining an important term here, and it's the word idiot. Okay, um, the word idiot comes from the old Klingon language, ancient Klingon language. Means big ideas. So regular people, normal people who have their feet on the ground, rational people, they have ideas, and these people have idiots, big ideas. So we call them idiots, or idiots for short. Okay, and yeah, Bostrom and Kurzweil, all these people, they're a bunch of idiots. That's what they are. I mean, these people have no place in science. And it doesn't stop with them. Here we have another fellow who is doing a lot to try to get us out of the planet. And like if all these people are not already floating in midair, but there's a fellow who's trying to get us out of the planet. His name is Elon Musk. And he's got this plan with his company. He's got a few $billions to spend on this. He's got a lot of investors also. It says by 2026 he plans to launch an uncrewed, I would say unscrewed maybe, uncrewed starship to Mars carrying a robot, some kind of bot, right? And okay, that's okay. That's, I guess, feasible. I have no problem with that. In fact, we've sent already the rovers over there, and they're running around the surface of Mars. I guess these robots would be a little more sophisticated. Fine. 2031, approximately, send a human mission to Mars. Okay, and that's possible. I'm not saying it's not. Maybe it's a little early at 2031, but so they send 6-8 people to Mars, right? So they walk around. Hopefully, the robots built something for them so that when they arrive, they say, okay, at least we have a place to stay, protected with oxygen tanks and whatever they need to live. Okay. Hopefully, the robots did the pre-work, right? Now we send the humans. Not sure why we would send the humans. I mean, why not just leave the robots, have the robots do everything? I guess they don't need air, right? They can breathe the CO2. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we send the humans out there, and then he says by 2040, approximately, these are very approximate numbers or just wishful thinking, right? Make a self-sustaining civilization on Mars. So we build a tiny city, a village, whatever you want to call it. And then by 2050, create a multi-planetary civilization with Mars serving as a backup for humanity in the face of potential threats on Earth. So we have problems on Earth, and instead of fixing them, let's just leave the Earth, and everybody who's left behind, I mean, I don't think they can take the 8 billion people or more, which we'll have by then, I guess, right, to Mars. So I guess the few ships that go out, right, they escape, and they say, well, the hell with you over there on Earth. All of you suffer with all the problems you got there, climate change or whatever. And we're headed to Mars, okay? So a very small group goes to Mars, right? But yet, Elon Musk on the other side, right, he talks about the declining birth rates in the world. Every country in the world has declining birth rates. And it's like nobody noticed that. Nobody realizes that that's somewhat of a problem. And he does say, must increase the birth rate in aging societies. How do you do that? When you get the old folks to have children? Well, maybe if we hit the technological singularity, maybe we can get away with that. We can get grandpa to have kids. Okay? Or the grandmas. That'd be a little tougher. Okay? But he does say that if we don't do this, we're going to have economic and technological consequences, among them shortages in the workforce, which I think is completely irrational. Okay, why? Because we're losing jobs right now. So if anything, jobs are being lost faster than people are being lost. So I think we shouldn't have a problem with the workforce. The problem will be for the workforce to find work. I think that's going to be the problem, because the jobs are going to be disappearing. We're only going to have service jobs, and within that, internet jobs, right? That's the future. And if you're not on the internet, well, then you won't have a job. Forget about manufacturing, forget about agriculture. Those are going to be taken over, among others, by bots, right? Okay, and here we support Elon Musk's worries, his prediction, his concerns, right? And yeah, humans are no longer producing consumers. That's one problem. And you can see that until these days, we've dropped down from 2.3, which was the highest point in 1963, all the way to today. We only have a 1.0 growth rate for the whole population of the world. Okay, and it's just dropping. And by mid-century, it's supposed to reach zero population growth. In other words, one person is born, one person dies. We're going to tie the game, and so population will remain steady. Okay. After which, the question is, are we going to have this situation? Are we going to have population drop to zero? And what you're staring at there is known as density-dependent birth rates. Okay, what happens at density-dependent birth rates is that as we move to the cities, we abandon the country, right? We abandon the villages and move to the big areas. More and more people looking for jobs primarily move to the cities. Once you're in the cities, you can't have children. And again, it's known as density-dependent birth rates. It's forbidden to have children in the cities for economic, cultural, and other reasons. Okay, so what does Elon Musk propose for Mars? I mean, which of these is true? I mean, here it is. Here's a breakdown. Okay, we're going to explore Mars. If we're exploring, we don't really need anything other than robots. So we don't need to send humans at all. If we're just going to explore Mars, right? Are we going to terraform or colonize Mars? That takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, because humans are not just the same thing as robots. And so that's a problem, because now you have insurance issues, you have health issues, you have a lot of things that you don't have with the robots. And then the question is the goal to evacuate Earth? We go from this big planet to this small planet known as Mars, where we have to terraform. In other words, until we terraform it, we change the CO2 into O2 so that we can breathe it. And we won't have the same pressure as here on Earth because there's going to be less oxygen in the best of cases, right? All that granted. Are we going to live in little bubble cities? All these bubble colonies, bubble villages? I mean, what's the plan? Are we going to evacuate Earth? Or are we going to just send prisoners out there? Evacuate the prisons, send them all out there and say, hey, we don't want you here, go to Mars. Live as best as you can out there. So, we have to find out what the goal is, because if we don't have a clear-cut goal, big goal, I mean, we're just going to colonize, or we're going to just explore, we don't need humans if we're going to explore. And if we're going to evacuate the Earth, well, good luck with that one, right? Okay, so where does all this simulation theory come from? Well, how did they come up with this? And a lot of it has to do with this duality which we've had since as long as we can remember, which is the separation between soul and body, conscience and your body, your structure, right? The object and the concept. And here it is. Nick Bostrom tells you, a common assumption in the philosophy of mind, again, all these philosophers, right, is that of substrate independence. What is a substrate independence? Well, it's the separation between, conscience and body, right? Like they were two separate things. It says the idea is that mental states can supervene on any of a broad class of physical substrates. Provided a system implements the right sort of computational structures and processes, it can be associated with consciousness experiences. And then he says the big bomb he throws in there. He says, it is not an essential property of consciousness that it is implemented on carbon-based biological neural networks inside a cranium. Silicon-based processors inside a computer could in principle do the trick as well. And he says, a computer that runs a suitable program would be conscious. That's where he says it all. I mean, he thinks that computers think. And a lot of people think like he does, that computers really do think. And they compare it against the thinking that humans have, with actual Mother Nature neurons, right? and synapses, right? He says it would be sufficient for the separation, for the generation of subjective experiences, that the computational processes of a human brain are structurally replicated in suitably fine-grained detail, such as on the level of individual synapses. This attenuated version of substrate independence is quite widely accepted. Widely accepted by whom? By the mental patients at the asylum? I mean, who's accepting this? Who are these philosophers, so-called philosophers? Is this what they deal with every day? Is this what we're paying them for, to think about this nonsense? And this is so scary. Really, it is scary. What are these substance dualists? Well, here you have a quick breakdown, okay? So substance dualists typically argue that the mind and the body are composed of what? Different substances. And that the mind is a thinking thing that lacks the usual attributes of what? Physical objects. Size, shape, location, solidity, motion, adherence to the laws of physics, and so on. And yeah, what these people are proposing is that these substance dualists, right, is that the mind is a different kind of substance, a different type of thing, a different type of object. And again, this is the problem we have in science in general, right? And this is for the last 10,000 years, is no one defines the terms. No one defines the terms, and we don't have any idea what these people are talking about. No, the mind is not a substance, it's not a thing, it's not an object, okay? So don't call it a thing until you define the word thing. What is a thing? And this shows the importance of defining the word things, especially for the purposes of physics, because they are bringing this stuff into physics by saying that conscious is a thing. Only physics deals with things. You know, philosophy doesn't deal with things, okay? When you define philosophy properly, right? Not the way these people define it, which is undefined, really. They only have opinions. No, we need a definition of the word philosophy, and when you define philosophy as behavior, then obviously we remove all things, all objects out of there and put them into physics. These people are saying that consciousness would go to physics because it's a thing. And for that, you have to define what a thing is. Okay? And even under the current definition, you know, that people use, the informal one that mathematicians use, which is see touch, you know, you can't see or touch consciousness. So even there it fails under that definition, let alone under the shape definition. And so, yeah, these people have these notions that the body and the mind are two different things. The spirit, you know, it goes to heaven, right? So we have this spirit that looks like you, has the same shape as you, and that's why they think it's a thing, maybe. And so, yeah, we have a problem because these people are treating this consciousness, this mind, this thinking, as being a physical entity that looks like you, leaves your body, right? Goes to heaven or wherever, in the case of these philosophers of mind. And because it can move, you know, out of your body, it's a thing. But then they never define it as a thing. They say, no, it doesn't have the properties of a thing, whatever a thing has, you know, as attributes or properties. And so they never specify that because they would lose the game immediately, right? And my son always suggests, hey, they should program all this stuff. Put it in a program, you know, quantum mechanics, general relativity, string theory. Put it in a computer program. See if the program can make sense of it. Define every entity that you're going to use for your theories and see what the computer program does. Will it handle it? Can it handle, you know, space-time, you know, four number lines? Can the computer program understand that and say, well, you're going to warp number lines, concepts? It's like warping love or intelligence. You know, how do you do that? You can't warp concepts, and that's what space-time is. And so on with all this. Are you going to move consciousness? Well, first you got to define it as an object. And what is an object? Well, first you got to define it in a computer, and unless you define it properly, you will not be able to move it. So, yeah, a lot of this stuff should be put in a computer to debunk the garbage of quantum mechanics and general relativity, string theory above all, but among other things, this notion that they have of simulation theory. it would die an instant death, and in retrospect, you would conclude that it should never have made it into the scientific literature.